A Mochi moment from Sadie, who writes, I'm not crying, you're crying. This is what I said during my first appointment with my physician at Mochi, because I didn't have to convince him I needed a GLP-1. He understood, and I felt supported, not judged. I came for the weight loss and stayed for the empathy. Thanks, Sadie. I'm Myra Ahmed, founder of Mochi Health. To find your Mochi moment, visit joinmochi.com.
Sadie is a Mochi member compensated for her story.
Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
What's up, champs? Welcome to another episode of the Short Shifts Fantasy Hockey Podcast, brought to you by Keeping Carlsson. I'm your host, Jeremy Versillo, and I'm back after the Olympic break, ready to roll with a solo show as the NHL kicks off again. There's only about 2.5 weeks left before the fantasy regular season wraps up, so I'll be here to help keep you in the loop on all the big news for your fantasy squad as playoffs approach. Let's get right to it. First off, we have some unfortunate injury fallout from the Olympics. Sidney Crosby will be out for probably close to 4 weeks. Originally, it was a minimum of 4 weeks. Now it's, 4 weeks from the injury, but he tried to get ready to play in the gold medal game, so he might have set himself back a little bit. Either way, you won't have Crosby for the rest of your regular season, and probably not the first rounds of the fantasy playoffs either. This has shifted the lines in Pittsburgh a little bit. Now, Rickard Rakell is centering that top unit or second unit, depending on how you look at it. And AHL call-up Avery Hayes is on that left wing slot. This is kind of an interesting pickup opportunity, I think. Hayes was a bit of an unknown coming into season, but he got a ton of praise in training camp. He actually was an undrafted free agent, got a ton of praise, and is killing it in the AHL this year to the tune of 30 points in 36 games. He's got shots, he's got hits, he's got a strong power play resume. I hope he sticks on that top unit for the next couple weeks and potentially gets some power play 2 time. I have not seen any power play lines yet from the Penguins as their game just started as I'm recording this, but he's an interesting pickup in a deeper league or any sort of speculative pickup, because Crosby's out. He could be there for a while if he sticks. And the Penguins have a pretty good schedule coming up. You know, they play today, Thursday. They play Saturday, Sunday. They play 4 games next week. And they have a decent playoff schedule, which does include a 5-game finals week. But that's less of an issue when Crosby will likely be back by then. The other injury clarification we got coming out of the Olympics is Mikko Rantanen. He's out at least 2 weeks. And Roope Hintz was ill for the last game, but it sounds like he's working his way back. This opened up some opportunity for Matt Duchene and Jamie Benn to jump onto the top power play, and at least Duchene did something with it last night. He was hot going into the break with 6 goals and 3 assists in his last 6 games, and he wasn't even on power play 1 then. Now he added another goal and a power play assist in his first game back. He's gotten more time to catch up on his conditioning after missing a month plus with an injury. So I'm kind of interested in picking him up for potentially a big last 4 or 5 weeks of the season. He was a point per game player last year, was drafted with that expectation, and just never really got off the ground to start this season. This could be the time to sneakily add Matt Duchene if he's sitting on your waiver wire in any leagues. Jamie Benn similarly got elevated to the top power play. He was hot before the break with 2 goals and 6 assists in his final 4 games, but he had no points yesterday. I think Benn likely will be the one kicked off the power play unit when Hintz comes back, but we'll have to wait and see on that. Not as interested in him as I am in Matt Duchene, although it is useful that Jamie Benn, as an older guy with a bit of a physical game, got a couple weeks to rest. I'm going to go more into that after the break, though, with some other guys. I know you're probably thinking right now, wait, Jeremy, there's so many other guys who missed games coming back from the Olympics. Are you going to talk about all of them? And no. I am going to just mention that a number of guys were game time decisions, got the first game back off, maybe got limited minutes in their first game. But as far as I'm aware, there's nobody else other than Kevin Fiala and Josh Morrissey, who I believe were talked about on the Mega Show, that I don't think there's anybody else that's going to miss a significant number of games coming out of the Olympics from a new injury. And on the same note, there are so many outjuries. Basically, anybody who was injured before the break, you should check on them and see what their injury timeline is, because there are far too many to name all the guys who just came back from an injury for today or yesterday's or tomorrow's games. I will mention a couple guys that had really big performances in their return. Brayden Point, in his first game back on Wednesday, had 2 goals, an assist, and another goal that was disallowed. It may be a little bit too late for the people who drafted Point in the second or third round, but could he possibly be a draft steal next year? He's only 29, the Bolts aren't going anywhere. The narrative that I see on the Discord is far, far worse than the stats are. Actually, in his last stint before getting injured, he actually had heated up quite a bit, and it was just an abysmal start to the season, the first month and a half or so, that dragged down his averages. Now looking at his Dauber page, he's kind of looking in line with previous seasons. Like, I would go into next year expecting Brayden Point to be a point per game player, 2.5 shots per game, 30 power play points. That's actually where he struggled the most this year. He only has 7 power play points on the season, which is very few for a guy who has made his hay in previous years on the power play. Again, though, I'm not concerned. I'm happy to have him on my fantasy teams, and I would be looking to draft him in the same place next year. Another guy who came back from an injury and had a big game, Leo Carlsson, had a goal and 2 assists. Seems to be picking up right where he left off, with the caveat that this was against an abysmal defensive performance from the Edmonton Oilers. Like, I watched part of that game, and man, there were some ugly mistakes from guys. So maybe don't expect the Ducks to be having 6-goal outbursts every game, but Leo Carlsson is going to be a huge part of their offense going forward. Get him off your IR, get him activated. He should be healthy and rested going into the latter half of the season, or latter third of the season. Lastly, we got our first look at the LA Kings with Artemi Panarin in the lineup. Panarin was, as I believe was reported earlier, playing on the first line with Alex Laferriere as the center and Adrian Kempe on the wing. He was also on the first power play unit with Clark, Byfield, Kempe, and Perry. Panarin got 2 assists in this game. Byfield had 2 goals, finally some signs of life. Perry's the only relatively unowned piece of that power play unit if you want to buy in, but he's also the most likely to get dumped for Laferriere or Kuzmenko, so I'd tread with caution there. I just want a piece of, the people that Artemi Panarin is passing to. Laferriere, I think, is the guy that I would be snatching up if he's available in any leagues. He's not in any of mine because they're, active 14-team leagues that aren't going to let a guy like that sit on the wire. But check your leagues. Alex Laferriere could be a big ad going into the end of the season, playing next to Artemi Panarin at even strength. With that, let's take a quick ad break, and I'll come back and do something instead of hot-cold, because one game does not make a hot streak or a cold streak.
DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, is built for the fastest game on ice. With player props and live betting, every shift, every shot, every save gives you the options to get in on the game with DraftKings Sportsbook. I'm taking a look at the odds right now. I like looking at the awards. See the Norris odds there? It's basically Cale Makar and Zach Werenski, both the overwhelming favorites. Quinn Hughes is the next up. Pretty high odds. Quinn Hughes, I think, is pretty good. Maybe he has a shot. But hey, that's up for you to decide over at DraftKings Sportsbook. New customers bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-789-777777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas, wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois. 21 plus in most states. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer. Copyright 2026. NHL. All rights reserved.
Welcome back, everyone. As I mentioned before the break, I can't really do hot-cold streaks off of a single game. So coming out of this 2.5-week Winter Olympic break, I am going to give you 3 categories of player to keep an eye on that may just come out roaring out of the break. The first category is older guys who just needed a rest. The second category is players who came back from injury before the break, but weren't fully ramped up, or the ones that were, close and would have been back in a day or two, but instead got 3 extra weeks to heal and train and skate. And the third is young guys who may have just hit a rookie wall and got a chance to rest and reset mentally, maybe play some AHL games for the ones who got sent down. So in that first category of older guys who needed a break, the names that came to mind were Jamie Benn, Corey Perry, Patrick Kane. Obviously, your Ovechkins and Tavareses will probably benefit from this, but I doubt you're able to add them on any of your waiver wires here. And those are just some names to get the juices flowing. I mean, I can't name every player in the league that fits that category. I could go through every team one by one, but then that would be a mega show in length and not a short shift by any means. Second category I mentioned, players who were close to coming back from injury or are coming back from injury and just got some extra time. We talked about Brayden Point earlier. We talked about Matt Duchene earlier, how maybe he came back and wasn't quite up to game speed and that's why he was struggling. Josh Norris comes to mind. Leo Carlsson, Logan Cooley, Adam Fox, Jonathan Marchessault, and Pierre-Luc Dubois had come back shortly before the break. Luke Hughes is another one. Conor Bedard was, came back right before the break and maybe needed some extra time to get back to game speed. Just keep looking for guys like that. Anybody who's coming off of an injury possibly has had more time to heal than they normally would in the grind of a season. And finally, my third category, these young guys who might have hit a rookie wall, started off really hot and had faded into background players over the long grind of a season, or maybe guys that had high hopes and just got blasted by the strength of an NHL game and needed a chance to mentally reset. Some names that came to mind for me here: Emil Heineman in the Islanders, Frank Nazar in Chicago. He actually also is relevant to the injury one as he had come back shortly before the break. Will Smith and William Eklund in San Jose. Not that they'd been bad, but, a little bit of a reset could be good for them. Demidov, Ivan Demidov in Montreal had kind of fallen off a bit the last few weeks. Ryan Leonard in Washington also had a hot streak and then was kind of fading a bit. And the last one, whichever Chicago defenseman gets power play 1, that appears to be Sam Rinzel currently. It also could be Artem Levchinov. It honestly could even be Kevin Korchinski if they decide to call him up. But right now, I'd be looking at Sam Rinzel as someone who may come back from this break a little bit rejuvenated. And with, only being 10 minutes into this podcast or so, I've got one more segment. Let's look at players with good schedules for the last 2 regular season weeks to help boost you into playoffs. This isn't going to be a full matchup maximizer level analysis here, just a quick look that I had taken before recording the show and, the couple teams that have good schedules and some names that popped off to me when I was looking at their current lines and roster. First off, there are 2 teams over the next few weeks that play 8 games with 4 off nights in 2 weeks, which is about the best you can ask for a schedule. That would be the Anaheim Ducks and the Toronto Maple Leafs. On the Ducks, Alex Killorn might be interesting. He's currently playing on the second line, had at least a goal yesterday, maybe more, had some power play time. He might be losing that spot when Granlund comes back Friday, so I'd pay a little bit of attention there. And my favorite sort of speculative ad, Radko Gudas in banger leagues, especially ones that have PIMs. He has to do a Canadian road trip over the next 2 weeks and just injured Sidney Crosby in the Olympics. Obviously, not intentional, bad outcome from some hard hockey and his style of play. But you bet some of those Canadian players are going to be pissed. And I would not be surprised if he has multiple fights on this upcoming Canadian road trip. On the Toronto side of things, Bobby McMann is mostly owned. I think he's shown himself to be a Frank Vatrano-esque own at this point. Max Domi was really hot before the break and is only 35% rostered in Cupful. I'd be looking at Domi as the running mate to Matthews and Nyes, and I think he could be a great ad for, 8 games in 2 weeks. The other top sixer that is interesting is Matias Maccelli. He's playing with Tavares and Nylander, but is always prone to give you cardio sessions because he doesn't shoot, he doesn't hit, he doesn't block. If he doesn't get an assist, he's probably getting you less than 1 fantasy point. Again, those are the only 2 teams that play 4 games next week and 4 games the week after. There are a ton of teams that have 7 games played, so I'm just going to highlight the ones that have either 4 or 5 off nights on their schedule. The only team with 5 off nights and 7 games played is the St. Louis Blues. The ones with 7 games and 4 off nights are Detroit, Edmonton, Ottawa, Philly, and Vancouver. Rapid fire, some names that jumped off to me that were available in some Cupful leagues. Jimmy Snuggerud, Claude Giroux, Brock Besser, Shane Pinto, Seaman Edvinson, who's just coming back from injury, Ridley Gregg, Marco Rossi, another injury returnee, Jake Neighbors, Marco Kasper, Vasily Podkolzin, and Kasperi Kapanen if he makes it back from his injury. I had not seen a timeline on that one recently. One thing to watch out for with a lot of these teams, though, if you're adding, their streamer-level players, is trades. I know Detroit is likely to add someone, Edmonton's likely to add someone, Vancouver and St. Louis and Philly could be trading players away. I know Evander Kane was a name I considered listing, but it sounds like almost guaranteed that he's going to be traded. So not only does that ruin your schedule planning if you add someone who gets traded, they also probably sit a game in the transition time of flying to a new city and getting accustomed to a new team. Lastly, for some look ahead for the next 2 weeks, Montreal plays 3 back-to-backs. So if you're interested in a goalie, both of the Montreal goalies, Dobesh and Montembeault, should get 2 starts or 3 starts out of those 7 games, which I guess is what you'd expect for a 50-50. Maybe this is more of a don't rely on one of them to get the majority of the starts there. Well, that'll wrap us up. A true short shift due to the lack of games played in the past couple days. Not much I can talk about. Thank you for joining me. If you enjoyed the show, please consider joining the Keeping Karlsson Patreon group at www.keepingkarlsson.com/patron. Super supporters receive ad-free episodes, and you can interact with Brian, Elon, myself, the Short Shifts crew, and hundreds of other talented fantasy managers on our active Discord server. Check out www.gamedaytweets.com to get all the best info from Twitter without having to slog through the rest of that place. It includes team by team and searchable tweets by player name. Visit that site and the other great sites we use to research our episodes with at Yahoo, Frozen Tools, and Natural Stat Trick. Our intro and outro music was created by Pat Roach. Until we see you next time, play smart and keep your shifts short.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.